Hey, come see us live. We're doing our Rumble Time show September 27th in Los Angeles. We'll be in Tempe, Arizona, and we'll be in Burbank, California. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets. Speaking of Bill Gates is the number one funder of the WHO. He does it through the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and Gavi, which is another NGO that he started that pushes vaccines. And so the former head of the WHO admitted that we run on donations and we have to do what the people who donate to us say. So that's why Bill Gates is the number one donor. And so he can tell the WHO what to do. So it's an unelected body that is now going to dictate to everybody over the next pandemic that will probably be manufactured like the last one was.
But what was the update on the treaty?
So here it is. So
you knew it. I don't know it.
So just to let people know what the WHO treaty is, Dr. David Martin is here, and he's going to tell you in 2 minutes what it is about.
You give an outline to the viewers who might not be aware of it. What this WHO international treaty that's currently being ironed out over at the UN, what is it all about?
Well, the key points are that with the support of the financial institutions of the Rockefeller Foundation, the Wellcome Trust, and the Gates Foundation, we're essentially ceding the ability to suspend all civil liberties and all of the rights associated with what we would call the Bill of Rights here in the United States, International Declaration of Human Rights. All of those can be suspended by a capricious determination that there's a public health emergency. And the minute that happens, there are no rights. In a nutshell, that's what the treaty is. And like the PrEP Act was after the anthrax outbreak of 2001, which the U.S. perpetrated on the U.S. so that we could get to the PrEP Act of 2005, the exact same playbook is how we got COVID to get us to this moment, which is to say, terrorize the world, convince them that we need some giant protector state that actually has some sort of supranational ability, and then suspend civil liberties as long as they need to be suspended. And in this particular case, at the whim of funding agencies who have no criminal accountability. So in a nutshell, if you feel good about that, feel good about May. What it does is it allows a board at the World Health Organization to either declare an actual emergency or declare an anticipated emergency. There doesn't have to be any evidence. There is no evidence standard at all. So this is actually worse than what happened in COVID, because they don't even have a standard that says they have to isolate a pathogen. They don't have to isolate anything. What they have to do is simply say, we think that there is a reason to declare an emergency. And as such, we therefore have the ability to suspend travel, to actually penalize member states. There's a very big clause inside of the treaty that actually has penalties on member states for noncompliance. But we have to go back to the formation of the World Health Organization, and a lot of people don't want to go back to 1944 to 1946 when the WHO was set up. Very few people know that they wrote absolute immunity from all criminal prosecution into their charter. The only organization self-appointed with no external authority ever granted to have the ability to write themselves out of all forms of criminal prosecution in perpetuity. That's right in the charter of the World Health Organization. And that right, which was actually negotiated by the Wellcome Trust and the Rockefeller Foundation, they are the ones that paid for it. They're the ones that put Renee Sand up as the first director. They're the ones that actually put all of these pieces in place. Give them the ability to act with impunity on citizens, regardless of your compliance or absence of compliance with any of the nation-state decisions around the World Health Organization. Every American citizen traveling abroad has no rights. They can be subject to any crime for which there can be no criminal prosecution. So if you feel good about that, yeah, there's probably a way we can actually soft pedal this thing. But the problem is, like we had with anthrax to get to the PrEP Act, like we've had with COVID to get to the World Health Organization treaty, these things are set up to be terror campaigns to modify the public's willingness to give up their liberties.
So that's what the WHO treaty is. And if you want to look into, you should research the anthrax attacks back from 2001 and where that anthrax actually came from. And it'll blow your mind, because that's what he's talking about there. And he's saying they used those anthrax attacks to get the PrEP Act. So now here's the update on the WHO treaty. This is Representative Tom Tiffany, and he introduced a bill. He says that the Biden-Harris administration wants to outsource our public health system to the WHO, the World Health Organization. Thankfully, the House just passed, the September 11th, his bill to stop that. House Resolution 1425 requires any WHO pandemic treaty to go through the Senate for consent. So that just passed, and here it is, House Resolution 1425, no WHO pandemic preparedness treaty without Senate Approval Act. Now it's got to go to the Senate, and it's got to make it, this bill has to make it through the Senate, and then it has to be signed by President Biden. Will they? So here's my favorite lawyer who's on the ball on this stuff. He says Congress shouldn't have to pass a law to assert its constitutional powers to approve treaties. But here is what the House just passed. So now it's up to the Senate to pass it and for Biden to sign it. So that's the update that just happened.
I thought it was with the Senate already. I thought that's what we were waiting on, but I didn't realize they just pushed that through on September 11th. Nice day for it, too.
So nice day. So this is where we are.
Wow. Well, they don't have that much time. They're going to have to weekend at Bernie's, pick him up, get his hand up there.
Aren't you surprised that made it through the House? I am. I'm surprised because most of the politicians are completely bought and sold, right? And they don't represent the people. It's all theater. It's all theater. They're there when there's a session of Congress. If you think that those people are in there and in a session of Congress trying to do the bidding of workers or students or the elderly or sick people or black people, they're doing the bidding of the donor class that put them there. That's why everybody goes bankrupt when they get seriously ill. That's why people are in debt up to their teeth when they have to want to go to college. That's why there's homeless people under every bridge. That's what and that's why we send hundreds of billions of dollars to Ukraine to fight a proxy war that the people of Ukraine don't want and the people of Russia don't want.
I mean, how much ball do you think Trump plays? I'm not in his last. Well, I guess in the last he got sidelined and sideswiped, and I think that he was around a lot of terrible people. But how much ball do you think he plays insofar as being able to keep himself in the public eye? I mean, the fact that he had a platform even on Fox as the antagonist was always, I sat back and watched this whole thing. I'm like, well, why won't they talk about Kennedy at all? He really is the number one threat, I think, in a lot of ways, because he defines everything. Trump will say, drain the swamp. You're going to get the same interview with Trump all the time. But Kennedy's been giving the same interview as well, and he's defined every single moment of what needs to happen in order to drain that swamp. So Dream Team, of course, but how the fuck does he get to play ball on Fox News is my question. How they allow him to be the antagonist. I mean, I know they have to. I mean, if they're that orchestrated and it's that tight, all of these institutions, I just wonder how he gets to.
So, they obviously tried to kill Trump, right? I made this. I was talking with Chris Hedges on his show the other day, and he says he has no hope. And I said, well, I can't go around with no hope, right? Because then I'll just get too depressed. So the hope that I have is that someone is trying to kill Donald Trump. Somewhere he is a thorn in the side of the deep state. Because he had the crazy idea that the president should control the military and the CIA, right. And they haven't done that since Kennedy.
And look at what happened.
Just think about that. Every president since Kennedy has not controlled the military, has not controlled the CIA, and how do I know this? So you remember back in 2016 when Trump became president and he was criticizing the deep state, saying they want more war, we got to get them under control. And Chuck Schumer, the leading Democrat in the Senate, went on Rachel Maddow and said, for a guy who thinks he's smart, he's being really dumb to criticize the CIA. And Rachel Maddow says, why? He says, because they've got 6 ways to Sunday to mess with you back. So what he revealed was that the CIA doesn't work for the president. And if they don't work for the president, and the president should be afraid of the CIA, well, who do they work for? Yeah. And that should have been Rachel Maddow's follow-up question. But of course, she didn't ask that question because she worked for the same people the CIA worked for, which is the military-industrial complex and a handful of billionaires who own a handful of corporations. As Mike Benz pointed out, go look at the Atlantic Council. Who's all the people on the Atlantic Council? Who's all the donors? That's who's running the things. That's the blob. That's the deep state. And
I think it goes even deeper.
And
I won't even go in because that's just getting way too in the weeds. But I would love to hear Mike Benz talk about all that stuff too.
Yeah, I wish that I talked to him for like an hour and a half, and that wasn't enough time. I can't wait to bring him back on. To talk about these, the WEF has these new cities that they're building.
Oh, the 15-minute cities. Yeah. I was just thinking about that before you said it. That's so weird because that was another thing that's been slightly abandoned. that was like at the forefront of all the underground news, and now it's kind of been quiet, but I guess the election's taken over everything. But the 15-minute cities, I was just explaining it to my housekeeper. I was like, not good. And I have friends that are endorsing this in New York City, and I'm like, you're out of your fucking mind.
And so that's my hope. My hope is that since they did Russiagate, they didn't Russiagate Joe Biden. In fact, the CIA came out and lied for Joe Biden, said that the Hunter laptop was Russian disinformation. And so they definitely have a favorite. The CIA definitely has a favorite, and it ain't Trump. So, and then they tried to kill him. And then the FBI did January 6th, and then they tried to kill him. So that gives me a sliver of hope. I have to have some hope, because just like I pointed out that at Glenn Ford, Margaret Kimberly, Jama Baraka, the Democrats are the greater evil. This idea that they're the lesser. Barack Obama dropped more bombs than George Bush. Barack Obama kicked 5.1 million people, families, not people, out of their homes while he made sure the bankers got their bonuses, and no one said a peep. So they are the greater evil. The left goes to sleep when a Democrat is the president.
100%. I'm guilty.
And yeah, me too. So that's my hope. My hope is that if they're trying to kill Trump, that when Bobby, and here's the real hope, is that when Bobby Kennedy gave that speech at that Trump rally in Arizona, he's up there talking about traditional Democrat lefty ideas. We're gonna get the corruption out of the captured regulatory agencies, the FDA, the CDC. We're gonna fight big agri. We're gonna clean up the water. We're gonna get the poison out of our food system. We're gonna fight childhood obesity. And everybody's cheering. Those are Republican voters, a stadium full of them cheering. So whether you think Trump is sincere about doing what Bobby says or not, at least that stadium full of people, we can all work with them. And this idea that the left and the right hate each other is manufactured through the media, and we have to realize we have more in common that divides us.
Of course, 100%. And that's that's the message I want to get out to all my fellow liberals. And it's hard because, even if I were to if I were to launch another podcast or do something, I'm like, I'm going to be stuck still talking to the same people that are in our group at this point. Like, we're all kind of talking to each other. We're not capturing a new audience. And the thing that is troubling me every day is, how do we get those kids? And I know we can't flip everybody and we can't wake everyone up, but there are people that are close to the edge of it, and how do we bring them over to the truth? And because I don't think that that dream team and that Justice League in the office like that they're not going to be able to stop this huge avalanche coming down alone. I think it's going to take the entire country and maybe even the rest of the world to say, fuck this, we're not going to take this anymore, and help them,
I often point to Christian Smalls, who is a black guy who organized the first Amazon union on Staten Island with Trump voters. And, I try to impress upon Cornel West when he was on my show that, when you lead with white supremacy and your trans rights, that is the backwards way to go at trying to organize people.
They're using them as pawns.
They're using them as pawns. And the way you do it, you don't go, hey, who's there's a gun nut? You're out. Who here is not for LGBTQ? You're out. Who here? That's not. Who's left? Now we're organized. That's not how it goes.
Yeah.
You go, hey, you organize around a single issue. Hey, come see us live. We're doing our Rumble Time show September 27th in Los Angeles. We'll be in Tempe, Arizona, and we'll be in Burbank, California. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets.